Satanic communism, soul salons, and there are more developments with that weird lab-created Nephilim-Brained story that we talked about a couple weeks ago. So we're going to get into that, all that and more on Josh Peck Disclosure Weekly. Hey, everybody. Welcome to JPD Weekly. Hope you have had a great week. I certainly have. I got to learn what keto flu is like, and it's not fun, but I'm hoping that it'll pay off. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the ketogenic diet, I'm doing something similar. It's not exactly that, but I'm doing something similar to that. And I did get thrown into the keto flu thing. You can look up ketosis, and if you're interested. I'm by far not an expert in this stuff, so I can't really give good solid advice or anything on it. I just for me, I have cut out all carbs, and I'm just strictly on protein right now for a little while, and then I like slowly introduce stuff back, and I'll do a video on all that later on after I've dropped some weight or you know, whatever. But so far, it took about 3 days for me to get over it. When it first happened, I actually thought I did have the flu. I didn't think that, you know, a diet change would cause me to feel like that. I mean, I read about it and stuff, but I didn't. For me, it was pretty rough. I was kind of thrown out of commission for basically a full weekend. But that's okay. You know, that's all done and over with now, and I'm feeling pretty good. So yeah, it's definitely time for a change. So that's what I'm doing. I want to be around for a long time. So time to get healthy and cut some of the junk food out of my diet. All right. So millennials are embracing this. Well, I mean, it's communism, but they don't realize how satanic it is. And it's on the rise in universities and stuff. You know, most millennials today, and I am a millennial myself, so not exactly proud of the title, but it is what it is. A lot of millennials don't really understand what the word satanic means or even really believe in it. You know, they don't see communism as the evil that it is. And because it is on the rise, especially in universities and stuff like that, I wanted to talk a little bit about communism and why is it satanic by nature. Now, communism has caused the deaths of more than 100 million people over the last century through famine, political killings, genocide, things like that. And it's created societies where power is held by a small group that it enslaves entire nations, and where you know, everyday life is filled with killing fields and gulags and re-education through labor camps. That's just a part of everyday life. But the economic failures and mass killing, slave nations, all that stuff that's created by communism, it's not actually the biggest crimes of the system. I mean, those are really bad, but the biggest crime of communism is the destruction of the human soul. So a key goal of communism is to demoralize societies, destroy the culture, destroy the religion, and destroy all the basic values of any society that it touches. The goal is laid out clearly in the Communist Manifesto, in which Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote in 1848 that communism, quote, abolishes all religion and all morality, end quote. So the most terrifying thing for someone is the destruction of faith, belief, and morality. Now, in the Bible, the book of Matthew states, fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. And, you know, of course, that's talking about God, but we've seen repeatedly that the goal of communism is to destroy the soul of humankind. So when a famine swept Russia in 1921, former Soviet leader Vladimir Lenin ordered seeds to be taken from the farmers. Between 5 and 10 million people starved because of that. Now, according to the Black Book of Communism, Lenin's response was that the famine was good for the communist movement, since famine, this is a quote, famine would also destroy faith, not only in the Tsar, but in God too, end quote. Now, while communism wears a lot of different masks, you know, including attempts to convince people that its intentions are benign, and, you know, the influence of its roots can always be seen. And while communism pretends to be atheist, many of its founders, including Marx himself, were not. they actually held satanic beliefs. The Romanian preacher Richard Wurmbrand was imprisoned under communism, documented much of the history in his book, Marx and Satan. So one example is Mikhail Bakunin, one of Marx's partners in the First International, who wrote, quote, "The evil one," in caps, "the evil one is the satanic revolt against divine authority, revolt in which we see the fecund germ of all human emancipations, the revolution. Socialists recognize each other by the words, in the name of one to whom a great wrong has been done," end quote. He also stated, quote, "In this revolution, we will have to awaken the devil in the people to stir up the basest passions. Our mission is to destroy, not to edify," end quote. Now, Marx's Satanism is evident in his early writings. He wrote in the poem Invocation of One in Despair that he would, quote, "build his throne high overhead. Cold, tremendous shall its summit be, for its bulwark superstitious dread, for its martial blackest agony. Who looks on it with a healthy eye shall turn back, struck deathly pale and dumb, clutched by blind and chill morality. May his happiness prepare its tomb," end quote. So definitely not a bedtime story there. But in Marx's poem, The Fiddler, he writes, quote, "The hellish vapors rise and fill the brain till I go mad and my heart is utterly changed. See the sword, the prince of darkness sold it to me," end quote. Biographer Robert Payne wrote in his 1968 book, Marx, that Marx, quote, "had the devil's view of the world and the devil's malignity. Sometimes he seemed to know that he was accomplishing works of evil," end quote. So we can also show through the core tenets of communism that by its nature, it's satanic. This goes back to dialectical materialism, which Joseph Stalin described in 1938 as the world outlook of the Marxist-Leninist party. And that's a direct quote. So Satanism works by inverting values within the Christian system. Dialectical materialism works by inverting the values of all traditional beliefs and all upright religious systems. It works on three principles to identify, contradict, and eliminate the middle. The inversion of whichever traditional value it's targeting becomes the issue pressed by communism, and it uses these inversions of tradition and morals to drive society into struggle and to use this struggle to destroy the values that exist within that society. Pope Pius XI wrote in 1937 that under this system, communism attempts to, quote, "sharpen the antagonisms which arise between the various classes of society," end quote. Now, using this, he said the communists create class struggle to create violent hate that can drive forward its issues under the false banner of progress. You know, where does that sound familiar? We see that a lot today. Now, communism is not just a political system or just an economic system. Its forms exist within many movements that are designed to destroy our values, traditions, and beliefs. It's a specter, as Marx described it, that aims to destroy humankind. So it's something that we need to keep our eyes on. We need to be aware of, and I mean, we got to put out content about this stuff to refute the claims that communistic societies can thrive, even though it's failed 100% of the time. Oh, but they weren't doing communism right. They'll say, well, let's not test it, and why don't we? If you don't like the system that you're in, either move somewhere else or try to fix the system that you're in. Now, certainly, of course, and I've talked about this in other videos. Yes, I love capitalism, but yes, capitalism can become corrupt. But at the same time, it doesn't have the horrific track record that communism does, and it's a system that within America can be fixed and changed for the better. But pure capitalism becomes corrupt when it's abused, when it's not capitalism anymore. When it's not actually clearly defined what capitalism is supposed to be. Now, those who make the same claim about communism, that's easily disproven, because all you got to do is go look at what communism was supposed to be, and that's exactly what it turns out to be. So, okay, moving on. Tech elites now are recreating this Burning Man thing, you know, inside their own living rooms, and we are seeing a what would you call it? Inception of something called soul salons. So very strange. Tech elites who are looking for more than just extra zones in their bank statements. You know, they're finding it in an unlikely place. These so-called songversations, emotion-heavy gatherings that combine philosophical rap sessions with improvised music run by, you know, ukulele strumming strumming songstress who describes herself as a heartist. So these are branded as soul asylums, like the band member from the 90s. No, soul salons, not quite as cool, but they import the cosmic explorer sensibility of Burning Man's dusty playa into the cozy living rooms of prominent entrepreneurs, where they sing freestyle on topics as diverse as, you know, environmental degradation and heartbreak. So it's kind of like a free jazz equivalent of, you know, a salon retreat or something like that. So the tech A-list is a curious place to land for Magic. Yes, it's a real name. This is a person named Magic, 37 years old, who speaks in these soothing tones of massage therapist and divides her time between Cardiff, California, and Bali, Indonesia. Now, until a few years ago, she ran a nonprofit for survivors of sexual trauma. But despite her wood nymph aura, or maybe because of it, Magic has found herself in some button-down circles. So in 2016, she performed at the Women Economic Forum in New Delhi and at a star-studded birthday party of her friend Kel Howery, who's a founder of PayPal on Necker Island. So she said, quote, "I don't know if you call this a breakthrough, but I got Peter Thiel to sing along and Elon Musk to smile," end quote. Now, Magic, who seems to approach every topic with a sense of giddy wonder, as if she, you know, just fell in love 5 minutes ago, believes that her appeal is rooted in the spiritual hollowness that so many business elites feel, you know, despite their wealth. Quote, "The finance and tech scene is still riding the waves of hyper-masculine values. Coffee to get through the day, alcohol to wind down, and sleeping pills at night to turn off the mind from all that they have going on. People forget that they are human beings rather than human doings," end quote. Now, this is where the soul salon comes into play, which Magic calls, quote, "a play date for your inner child," end quote, and performs as a gift. You know, she said, although guests are invited to contribute in accordance with the value they feel they received. Now, the salons usually start with a theme, like the emptiness of consumer culture. As key phrases arise, Magic begins, you know, strumming and humming and weaving those lines of dialogue into a melody, and the effect is vaguely akin to like Joni Mitchell performing freestyle rap at Davos. So as the song grows, others join in with musings of their own in kind of like a call and response style. And not every captain of industry can carry a tune, but that's not the point, apparently. You know, Magic has said, quote, "We don't sing to be good, we sing to be free," end quote. Now, Andrew Hewitt, creator of Game Changers 500, which ranks the world's top 4 benefit businesses, said that he, quote, "witnessed some of the headiest Silicon Valley titans be deeply touched through these experiences," end quote. Quote also says that for people who live most of the time in their head, this feels like magic. Actual magic, not Magic the person. Now, Magic the person is now extending her song beyond Silicon Valley with a 10-city tour, which is a mix of private salons and public events starting at $35, stretching from the summer solstice to the fall equinox. Yeah, those New Agers really like their solstices and equinoxes. What's the proper plural for that? Now, the tour began in New York on June 22nd when 150 people showed up at a Cavener's Galley in Chelsea around 7 p.m. Many dressed in flowing tie-dyed pants, caftans, and silk head wraps, and a photography show and a talk sponsored by Peace Accelerators took place at the same time. So, you know, Magic looked like she was ready to jam with the Exile on Main Street era Rolling Stones wearing, you know, skin-tight bell bottoms and platforms, and admitted to being nervous. She said, quote, "One of the reasons why I do what I do and why I am, honestly, on this planet is to show up with such a level of vulnerability and sincerity and authenticity that it almost gives people permission to let it go for a little while." End quote. Now, whatever the topic, Magic speaks with a faraway sense of wonder. And when the singing commences, Magic, has invited the assembled to sit on a floor in a semicircle where the musician named Elijah Ray droned a mystical tune that called to mind images of saffron robes and singing bowls. But as the music swirled, Charles Eisenstein, a proponent of what he calls sacred economics, talked about the unending human injury to Mother Earth. He said, quote, "If you knew she could feel, would you stop?" Now, when his monologue wound down, Magic rose and began a Norah Jones-style ballad, picking up phrases from Eisenstein's talk. Quote, "If we believed," this is from the song, she's saying this in kind of like a jazz scat kind of thing, that me, and the river were the same, would it change my ways?" End quote. Now, at first, the audience sat silently, seemingly puzzled, but slowly people began to clap their hands and sway to the beat, and a man in floppy hat and wizard-like robe began to gyrate around the dance floor, apparently. And one observer has said, "It's Burning Man in Chelsea." So these are the same type of people that say they're not religious, or they're spiritual, but they're not religious, or something like that. A lot of them kind of act like they don't have time for God or spirituality, but they have time for this stuff, which more worships the self over any kind of deity or the earth or something like that. Usually it's something like that. But I guess to each his own. But I think the claim that just because you're rich doesn't mean that you have any spirituality is wrong. It's just a lot of times it gets funneled into stuff like this. So, weird story, interesting story. I'd love to know what you think about it. But yeah, so these soul salons are thriving in our what would you call it? Maybe a post-Christian America, where Christianity seems to be dwindling down, and this kind of New Age stuff is rising up. Now, there is a very important reason that I bring up this story, which will become abundantly clear in a couple of months. I can't say anything about it, but I can say I'm involved in a project that I'm excited to release. It's going to blow people's minds. No one even knows that this is going on right now. Well, the people that are involved with it do, but it's just about done. Actually, it is done. It's just in the final phases of completion. And people will have to stay tuned to Skywatch TV to see what this is all about, but you won't regret it. And this story is just kind of a clue, of what it is. So I'll tease it out through there. Now, I think it is a good time to continue our study into the book of Job. I've gotten a lot of feedback from all you guys saying you really enjoy these, and I appreciate that. That means a lot. I'm glad that you do. I actually enjoy them too. I'm learning a lot going along in this study with you guys. And if you haven't had a chance to do so, you can find the studies that we've done. We've done chapters 1 through 4 so far. You can find those on this channel if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on Blog Talk, you can find it there. Or if you're watching this on DTube, and I hope you are, I really want to grow and expand my DTube audience. If you're watching this on DTube, please subscribe, and you can find all the studies there too on my DTube channel. So this study comes from the Defender Limited Edition King James Version Bible with expanded Apocrypha. They are sold out. They pretty much sold out immediately. It was on a very limited run, and from what I understand, they're not going to be printed again. But if you if you go to skywatchtvstore.com, they do have a deal where you can still get the Researcher's Library Apocrypha, so you can still follow along in that. Now, if you have this, we're going to be on page 599 in the book of Job. And remember, too, because we do Job and Enoch, in Enoch, for the Apocrypha, the page numbers start over again at 1. So when we get into Enoch, you just keep that in mind. It's in the back of the book. But so we're going to start in chapter 5, and we'll just see where this takes us. So chapter 5, verse 1. Call now if there be any that will answer thee, and to which of the saints wilt thou turn? For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate. Neither is there any to deliver them. Whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and taketh it even out of the thorns, and the robber swalloweth up their substance. Although affliction cometh not forth of the dust, neither doth trouble spring out of the ground, yet man is born unto trouble as the sparks fly upward. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause, which doeth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who giveth rain upon the earth, and sendeth waters upon the fields, to set up on high those that be low, that those which mourn may be exalted to safety. So now this is really interesting here. Now, just so you know who's talking, we're still at Eliphaz the Temanite. So through chapter 4, that's who was talking. That's who's still talking. Is one of Job's friends here. So he's actually giving God some props here and saying, God does these wonderful things even in this terrible situation. So let's continue on and see where he's going to land on this. So, okay, so verse 10, who giveth rain on the earth and sendeth waters upon the fields, to set up on high those that be low, and those which mourn may be exalted to safety. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their heads cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night, but he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise not thou chastening of the Almighty. Now that's interesting, because that verse right there, verse 17, I'm going to say that again. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. And we'll go into verse 18 before I comment a little bit here. For he maketh sore and bindeth up, he woundeth, and his hand make whole. Now, it's interesting because he makes this statement here that is correct. Happy should be, at least, the man whom God correcteth. But then he also assumes that that's what's happening here. He assumes that Job is being corrected, that this stuff is happening because Job's being corrected in some way. Now, where his friend is right is that's good advice. That if God is correcting us, then yes, we should be happy about that. Maybe happy isn't exactly the right word. We should be blessed by it. We should learn from it. It's not always going to be a happy experience. It's just like when a parent corrects you. It's not, if you remember being a kid and getting yelled at, it's not fun. But now that we're adults, if God is correcting our behavior in some way, then we can take time to appreciate that, even if it's uncomfortable, because we're going to come out better for it. So he makes a good point there, but then he follows it up with, despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. So he's kind of assuming that that's what's going on here, and he doesn't really know that. All he knows is that his friend is suffering, and so he's kind of thinking, well, this is probably the case, and it makes us wonder, how often do we think about that? Sometimes we don't really think about this in terms of friends. Sometimes we might, if we have a really close friend, and then if they, I don't know, if they're involved in some type of sinful behavior that gets them in trouble, then we might think or say, well, you should learn from that. But we're really good at throwing this judgment out at our enemies or somebody we disagree with or somebody we don't like. I remember hearing, well, you could just look it up online. You know, whenever a prominent Christian leader dies or is hurt, you're always going to have those people, or suffer some kind of tragedy. You're going to have those people that say that it's God trying to get their attention. And that's a bold claim, and one that I don't think we should be making, because it's not up to us to make that claim. That's up to the individual and God. And it certainly doesn't apply in every single case. Now, there are times that things can come into your life that are painful or bad or negative that you can still learn from. And maybe it's not necessarily that you did anything wrong. You know, maybe, well, for example, I was born with a bone disease. Now that's given me some perspective on things. It's definitely taught me compassion. It's taught me to be humble in my own limitations and things like that. Now, I wouldn't say that, I would not phrase that God gave me a bone disease. And I certainly don't think that it's some type of punishment for something that I did wrong or anything like that, or that I screwed up somehow and now I have this because I was born with it. So, you know, what did I do? But, you know, I wouldn't say that. I think that we live in a fallen world, and sometimes those things just happen because the human body is not perfect. You know, the human genome, DNA is not perfect, and sometimes you're going to get a disease like that. And a lot of people have a lot of different stuff. So sometimes those things can come into our lives, and it's all about what we make out of it. Are we going to curse God over it? Are we going to blame God? Are we going to say that God gave me this horrible thing? Or are we going to do our absolute best, as much as it might hurt? Are we going to do our absolute best to just trust God and let him guide us through that situation so we can become stronger? You know, we can't just sit around and do nothing. But we got to try to learn from it. You know, what can I learn from this, and how can this thing that's happening contribute to me being better tomorrow than I was today? You know, I think that's a good way to look at it. So it depends on the type of chastening, excuse me, that his friend here, that Eliphaz the Temanite, is talking about. Is he talking about, well, you did something wrong, so the Lord is chastising you or chastening you, or you know, he's trying to teach you a lesson because you did something wrong, or is he taking it as, well, look, you know, sometimes this stuff happens and you can be blessed by it anyway? That's a good question. And so to answer that, we will continue on. Verse 19, chapter 5, verse 19, he shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, and neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth, for thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation and shalt not sin. Thou shalt know also that thy seed shall be great, and thine offspring as the grass of the earth. Thou shalt come to thy grave in full age, like as a shock of corn cometh in his season. Lo, this we have searched it, so it is. Hear it, and know thou it for thy good. So kind of sounds like a prophecy, or at least just, you know, it depends on the way that you read it. If you're reading it like, look, if you take this thing as something that, and I'm trying to apply it to modern day today, I'm trying to apply it to how you could think about it in your own lives. You know, if you take this bad thing that's happening and you look at it as a learning experience, all these good things can come out of that. You know, you can become a lot stronger and more plentiful, and you can have good things, and you know, there's a lot of good that could come from that. But none of that's going to happen if you don't try and learn. And again, learning doesn't always mean that you did something wrong. You can learn lessons without it having to mean that. You know, sometimes it means that, probably many times it means that, but it doesn't always have to mean that. So let's see how Job's going to answer. This is chapter 6. But Job answered and said, "Oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed and my calamity laid in the balances together. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are swallowed up. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. The poison whereof drinketh up my spirit, and the terrors of God do set themselves in array against me." Excuse me. "Doth the wild ass bray when he hath grass, or loweth the ox over his fodder? Can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg?" Now, it's, it's kind of funny that he brings those up because it almost sounds like he's complaining. It's, can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Oh, yeah. It might not be perfect and it might not taste great, but at least you have food. And then the same thing here. Obviously, this was not written in our modern day, but is there any taste in the white of an egg? Well, lots of people live off of egg whites nowadays, and they get along just fine. But here he's kind of saying, like, isn't the best a thing can be? Isn't that all it is? What is it worth if you take one part of it? If you take the part of it that makes it good, if you take that away, how is that any good? It's like, well, that's not the right perspective, because you could say, well, sure, salted meat tastes better, with salt. Meat tastes better with salt, but if you don't have salt, at least you have meat, and at least you can survive. Same with the egg white thing. So let's continue. Verse 7: the things that my soul refused to touch are as my sorrowful meat. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for, even that it would please God to destroy me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Then should I yet have comfort, yea, I would harden myself in sorrow, let him not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should hope, and what is mine end that I should prolong my life? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh of brass? Is not my help in me, and is wisdom driven quite from me? To him that is afflicted, pity should be shewed from his friend, but he forsaketh the fear of the Almighty. My brethren have dealt deceitfully as a brook, and as the stream of brooks they pass away. And which, verse 16, which are blackish by reason of the ice, and wherein the snow is hid. What time they wax warm, they vanish. Wherein it is hot, they are consumed out of their place. The paths of their way are turned aside. They go to nothing and perish. The troops of Tema looked, and companies of Sheba waited for them. They were confounded because they had hoped. They came thither and were ashamed. For now ye are nothing. Ye see my casting down and are afraid. Did I say, bring unto me, or give me a reward? Give a reward for me of your substance, or deliver me from the enemy's hand, or redeem me for the hand of the mighty. Teach me, and I will hold my tongue, and cause me to understand wherein I have erred. How forcible are right words, but what doth your arguing reprove? So he's asking his friends, well, what did I do wrong? You're saying that I need some kind of chastening here. What did I do wrong? Verse 27, ye overwhelm the fatherless, and ye dig a pit for your friend. Now, therefore, be content. Look upon me, for it is evident unto you if I lie. Return, I pray. Let it not be iniquity. Yea, return again. My righteousness is in it. Is there iniquity in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern perverse things? Let's continue on with chapter 7, because he's going to continue on talking. We'll stop before 8, because in 8 is where Bildad, the Shuhite, comes in. So chapter 7, continuing on. Is there not an appointed time to man upon the earth? Are not his days also like the days of an hireling? As a servant earnestly desireth the shadow, and as a hireling looketh for the reward of his work, so am I made to possess months of vanity, and wearisome nights are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise, and the night be gone? And I am full of tossings to and fro until the dawning of the day. My flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin is broken and become loathsome. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is wind. Mine eye shall no more see good. The eye of him that hath seen me shall see me no more. Thine eyes are upon me, and I am not, as the cloud is consumed and vanisheth away. So he that goeth down to the grave shall come up no more. So, he's obviously clearly wanting this to be over. He wants, if this is going to be his life, he doesn't want it. He wants it to be over. And there have been times, like personally, just with my bone disease, there were times where, not recently, but in my teen years and early 20s, there were times where I had the same attitude. If my life is going to be full of this type of pain, what's the point? I don't want that. I'd rather just die and be with the Lord now and be in heaven now and not have to deal with any of this. It's an extremely immature and uninformed attitude, because some of the best people, some of the people that God can really use are the people who are in pain, are the people who aren't, they've learned through hardship. They might not be technically as well off or as polished or as nice and clean and tidy, or even sometimes not even necessarily as smart as everybody else, but they've got something special, and God can really use that more than he can use the other things. I mean, he can use the other things too, but those are the people who have been through hardships. They're going to have compassion and empathy. They're going to understand the struggles of other people. They're going to have love. They're going to have a lot of love, generally speaking. So those are the types of people God can really use. And if you're out there and if you're feeling like Job is feeling here, give it some time and ask God to guide you and teach you. And I know it's hard and it hurts, and it, whatever the trauma is, it's terrible. But all things, it says in Scripture, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purposes, and or for those who love God and are called according to his purposes, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but basically it means that not all things are going to be good. There's going to be a lot of bad things, but God can work all those bad things together for something good in your life if you love him, if you trust him, if you're called for that. And I believe that we as Christians, if we're Christians and if we've taken up the Great Commission and things like that, I think at least in a way we're all called for that, at least in some way to varying degrees. But think of it as like ingredients of a cake, raw flour, raw egg, raw butter, things that by themselves you would never want to eat, by itself. But you mix them together, you work them together, you put them in the oven for a while, you put it through some heat and some pain for a while, and then when it comes out, it's you make a beautiful cake out of it. You could think of it sort of like that. So the individual things in life, if you look at them individually, you're probably going to have more bad things than good. I mean, let's just be honest. And I don't mean that pessimistically. I'm just saying you're likely going to have more bad, tragic things than really, really good things. That's likely going to be the case. But that doesn't matter as much as how what you learn from it, or if you choose to try to learn from it, or if you let God guide you through that. So again, I understand the feeling here that Job's expressing, that if this is life, if this is my life, and I'm just put on earth to be in pain, and that's all it is, and I don't want anything to do with it. While I understand that it's wrong, that is what the enemy wants you to think. The enemy wants you to think, life's too hard, it hurts too much, I can't deal with it, and if this is my life, I don't want any part in it. If you're still around, if you're still alive, God's got a reason for that. And if you're feeling like this, then you still have some ways to go. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way or like a negative way. That can be a blessing, and it should be. You should try to look at it as a blessing. You still got something to learn. There's still something for you in this life, and not just for you, but for others around you that you can bless them with. So that's the attitude. And of course, it's not going to be like a light switch. You're not just overnight going to feel like that. I mean, some people might, but it's going to take some time. But just every day, pray for that, and see what God does with it. So continuing on, where did we leave off here? I kind of got off on a tangent there. So I think we're on verse 8, verse 9. Verse 9, okay. As the cloud is consumed and vanisheth away, so he that goeth down to the grave shall come up no more. Okay, continuing on in verse 10. He shall return no more to his house, neither shall his place know him anymore. Therefore I will not refrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a whale that thou settest a watch over me? When I say, my bed shall comfort me, my couch shall ease my complaint, then thou scarest me with dreams and terrifiest me through visions, so that my soul chooseth strangling and death rather than my life. I loathe it. I would not live alway. Let me alone, for my days are vanity. What is man that thou shouldest magnify him, and that thou shouldest set thine heart upon him, and that thou shouldest visit him every morning and try him every moment? How long wilt thou not depart from me, nor let me alone till I swallow down my spittle? I have sinned. What should I do unto thee, O thou preserver of men? Why hast thou set me as a mark against thee, so that I am a burden to myself? And why dost thou not pardon my transgression and take away mine iniquity? For now shall I sleep in the dust, and thou shalt seek me in the morning, but I shall not be. All right, so next time we will continue on in chapter 8. And, you know, just in concluding that, there's really not much else to say with, but besides what I said before. It's, you know, Job's at just the beginning of his journey through this, of understanding what's happening to him. He's right at the beginning now. So if you're feeling like that, you know, Lord, why don't you just take me away? And I don't even care if everybody forgets about me, and if I never make a mark on the world, or if I never, you know, am remembered, that's fine. Just get me out of here. I don't want anything to do with this world anymore. Again, I totally understand how that feels, but Job is feeling like that, and we're just in the beginning of the book. So there's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more to do, and that attitude is not where God wants you. Now, again, I say that with all love and understanding and sympathy and empathy, really. But going through it myself, I understand the feeling, but I also understand that there's more for you, and more importantly, there's more you can do for God, for those around you. So, you know, you never want to give up hope, and you want to just keep trusting on the Lord. All right. So the blending of technology and evangelism, you know, it actually has a pretty profound effect that's beneficial. And this is coming from a new study that reveals this amazing impact technology is having on evangelism. So, you know, evangelism can be one of the most rewarding yet daunting obligations that a Christian faces, but it appears that technology has, at least for some, made sharing the gospel a little bit easier. So according to a new study from the Barna Group, roughly 3 in 10 Christians have shared their faith with their non-believing friends and acquaintances on social media. And based on the data, 28% of Christians say they use social media to broadcast their faith. 58% of non-believers said a Christian shared their faith with them online. 30% of Christian respondents said they are equally as likely to share their faith online as in person, while 12% said they are more likely to evangelize over the internet. Now, Barna stated in its report, quote, technology and rapid cultural shifts may have altered the face of evangelism, but the Great Commission remains. This new report tracks what has changed so that leaders can coach Christians to be effective in sharing the unchanging good news. End quote. So interestingly, despite having grown up in the digital age, millennials are the most cautious when it comes to openly sharing their religious beliefs on social media. While only 30% of baby boomers, so those born between 1946 and 1964, said that technology has made them more careful about sharing their faith. 58% of millennials, those born roughly between 1981 and 1996, they said they exercise more caution on the internet. But nevertheless, it's clear that technology has impacted the way Christians fulfill the Great Commission issued in Matthew 28:19, which says, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. So by making it both less intimidating and more accessible. Now, a total of 47% of the survey's Christian respondents agreed that technology and interaction on social media have changed how others respond when they share their faith. And similarly, 44%, excuse me, said technology in this digital age has, quote, changed how they share their faith, end quote, with those around them. So here's the breakdown of how Christians share their faith online. 88% through personal posts, 86% by sharing others' posts, 85% by comment on others' posts or walls, 58% via profile information, and 34% by profile image. So that's the end of the study, and that's a breakdown of what it shows. But it's interesting because I know, of course, you're watching this, and I'm talking about Jesus on this channel all the time. So I certainly use technology for evangelistic purposes, and but I'm curious to know how many out there use it for that too. There's a lot of hesitation about things like quantum computing, and for good reason. And there VR technology and a lot of stuff that's kind of headed our way, in the technological spectrum. There's a lot of apprehension, a little bit of fear with some of this stuff. But I kind of think that it's going to end up being like what the internet was. Imagine if you were to explain the internet to somebody who, a Christian who was alive in, say, the 60s or 70s. And you explained it as this place where, it all depends on how you explain it, really. Because you could talk about all the dark things that go on the internet and how it's abused. You could talk about pornography and trolling and just how no one has any respect for one another online. And cowardly people are willing to say the absolute worst things in a YouTube comment, but they would never say those things to your face. You could talk about it like that. Or you could say, that there's this great tool where you can go and witness to people in China, or you have access to the entire world, and you can share the gospel basically for free. I mean, it costs like nothing. You can go to your library and use it. So I mean, it depends on how you explain it, but I think that a lot of the future technologies that are headed our way, some of them, I think it's going to be like that. I think that there's going to be some fear at first, but once Christians find ways to utilize them for spreading the gospel, then I think a lot of that is going to dissipate. Now there are some technologies where you just can't really use it for that, like gene editing and stuff like that. Like that's just not going to work. But I think the more that technology progresses, the more we're going to see. I pray more opportunities to spread the gospel, just like what the internet did for us. But I would like to know your thoughts, and I would like to know what you think. And so leave me a comment in the comment section below. Archaeologists have found the gate to the biblical city of Zer, Z-E-R, and it's the entrance gate. And this was the gate where Jesus split the 5 fishes and 2 loaves to feed the multitude. So they just found the gate to this biblical city during excavations carried out in the Golan Heights over the past 2 weeks. And this comes from the Golan Regional Council. They released this last Sunday. So in recent days, and after a year of recess, a group of 20 archaeologists from all over the world, together with director of the Bethesda Project, Dr. Rami Arov, and under the auspices of the Hebrew Union College, Jerusalem, conducted new excavations in 2 different areas of Bethesda. It's hard for me to say. The ancient fishing village is mentioned several times in the New Testament as a city where Jesus lived and where he miraculously fed a multitude of people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. I think when I first said that, I got that mixed up. I think I said 2 loaves and 5 fish. But okay, so 5 loaves and 2 fish. If I did say it wrong, my apologies. Now, archaeologists said that the size, wealth, and impressive fortifications indicate that Zer was a major city. So there's a quote here from, who is this from? I'm not seeing it. Arav himself. So, quote, there are not many gates in this country from this period. Bethsaida was the name of the city during the Second Temple period, but during the First Temple period, it was the city of Zur. And he points to Joshua 19:35, which says the fortified towns were Zadim, Zur, Hamath, Rakath, Kinnereth. So Arab began carrying out excavations of Et Tel on behalf of the University of Nebraska only about 30 years ago. And in these excavations, he identified the ancient Bethsaida. And following his excavations and discoveries, masses of Christian pilgrims visited the site because of its great importance to Christianity. And now, over the years, excavators have discovered in Bethsaida many remains from various periods. The excavations are conducted in the Jordan Park area, which is northeast of the Sea of Galilee. Avi Lieberman, director of the Jordan Park in which Bethsaida is located, said, quote, "The staff at the Jordan Park and the Golan Tourism are happy for the tens of thousands of visitors who visit the park every day. The wonderful park is also an impressive archaeological site. I'm amazed each time by the arrival of thousands of evangelical visitors to the Bethsaida. I am confident that the latest discoveries will bring more visitors to the park from around the world and from Israel," end quote. Now, another finding made in the past 2 weeks was discovered underneath what was seemingly the floor of a Roman temple built by Herod's son Philip, which he dedicated to Julia, the daughter of Augustus. Their archaeologists found coins, beads, jugs, and house keys, as well as a shield that belonged to a Roman soldier. And the most significant finding was a coin dated to 35 BCE, which was minted in Acre on the occasion of the arrival of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. And there's a total of 12 of those coins. Now, over the years, various findings made in the area have made waves in the world of archaeology. Several years ago, a gold coin bearing the portrait of Roman Emperor Antonius Pius, who reigned from 138 to 161 CE, was discovered by an excavator working with Arab. So, you know, we will have to stay tuned to see what they're going to discover next. But I always like it when these types of things are found, because I think it kind of adds, you know, adds some credibility to what we kind of already believe as Christians, and it can kind of help. Now, remember a couple weeks ago, we did a story on these Neanderthal mini brains that were being cultured in scientific labs. Well, now there's some developments on this. Now, scientists want to implant these Neanderthal mini brains into robots to create cyborg cavemen. Now, there have been some, and I don't know if I agree with this or not. I don't know, but there are some who connect ancient Neanderthal with the Nephilim of the Bible. So that's why I put Nephilim in the title, because, you know, some people make that connection, and I personally don't really know, and I don't know, but I'll just leave it at that. But you know, so, you know, think of that name, Neanderthal, Cyborg, Caveman. That probably would have been a good name for a band or a song. But it sounds kind of like a bad thing to create in a lab. But this is what's happening on a college campus that's filled with kids tired of playing beer pong, apparently. But that's what's going on at the University of California, San Diego, or UCSD, School of Medicine, where researchers are using Neanderthal DNA to grow Neanderthal mini brains that they plan to connect to robotic bodies to test the Neanderthal mini brain's ability to learn. So, you know, what could possibly go wrong? Now, at a recent UCSD conference called Imagination and Human Evolution, USCD geneticist Alison Moutry explained why Allison is a he, okay, thought creating Neanderthal organoids using stem cells combined with Neanderthal DNA into brains the size of peas that they called Neanderoids he talks about that. So his research team used the Nova-1 gene, which is nearly identical in humans and Neanderthals and has been linked to autism and schizophrenia. Now, while they would likely have to grow larger than peas, the Neanderthal brains are stuck at this size because they have no blood supply and depend on nutrients fed to them by humans. But again, you know, there's a quote here. It is possible that in the future we could grow a bigger organoid. We are working on this by creating bioprinted artificial blood vessels inside them. So, of course, I mean, and this is what we talked about the last time when we covered when this story first broke, is, okay, it's obviously not going to end there. It's going to progress, and they're going to keep doing stuff. They're going to keep trying to grow them, and they're going to keep trying to make these horrible, abominable things. And look, I mean, we're only, I think that was only 3 or 4 weeks ago we talked about that. And already the next phase is being implemented. So the Neanderthal mini brains are, you know, apparently already paying off. Muortri, I don't know how to say that name, found that Neanderthal neurons make less synaptic connections, which in humans is an indicator of autism and a necessary part of developing socialization. So to test this, the researchers plan to hook these Neanderoids to crab-like robots. They look like little crabs, to see if they can learn how to move them around. Then they'll put them together with AI robots, basically just to see what happens. And, you know, of course, this sounds like science. This sounds like science fiction. You know, what could possibly go wrong? Simon Fisher, who's a geneticist who heads the Max Planck Institute for Psycholinguistics in the Netherlands, has genetically engineered mice to have mutated human gene linked to speech disorders. And he's evaluating the research, and he basically said it's kind of wild. That was his quote. So, you know, obviously that's an understatement. But, I mean, what do you guys think about this? Where do you think it's headed? And is there any theory at this point or any idea that's too crazy? You know, if there is, I'm not saying it, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. All right, let's continue on in the book of Enoch before it gets too much later here. Now, if you haven't had a chance, make sure you check out the past recordings that we did on Enoch, and because you're gonna want to watch those to keep up to date on these. And again, this is from the Defender Bible limited edition King James version with extended apocrypha. They are all sold out. If you have yours, it's on page 8. But again, this is the cycled over page that, you know, you gotta the apocrypha, the page numbers start over again. So you have to go through that. Now, last time, let's see where we left off here. I think we left off in chapter 9, because the last thing that we read, I believe we did chapter 8, and today we're going to start in, chapter 9. Okay. And we'll do a couple chapters here before we wrap up. But yeah, so if you're following along, chapter 9, verse 1, book of Enoch, page 8 in the Apocrypha, starting in verse 1. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said to one another, the earth made without inhabitant cries the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men made their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. Excuse me. So if you missed last time we did this last week, we got the fallen angels that came down on Mount Hermon, and they mated with human women, and you got all these horrible creatures all over, and now it's just chaos and turmoil and war and all this stuff all over the earth. Okay, so now verse 4, And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of Lord, God of gods, King of kings, and God of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name holy and gracious, holy and glorious, and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou, and all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Semyaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates, and they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth that thereby been filled with the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. And now, behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven. And their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. And thou knowest all things before thy come to pass, and thou seest these things, and thou dost suffer them, and thou dost not say to us what we are to do to them in regard to these. Okay, so these are the good angels petitioning the Lord, saying, look at what the bad guys did. Look at what the fallen angels, look what Azazel especially did, and now it's just war on the earth. What are we supposed to do? Chapter 10, well, we'll find out. Chapter 10, then said the Most High, the Holy and Great One spake, and sent Uriel to the son of Lamech, and said to him, go to Noah and tell him in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching. And the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudiel, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire, and heal the earth which the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague. What's interesting there, some have connected this account here with Azazel being thrown into, cover him with darkness. They've connected it with Revelation 9 with Abaddon. And I don't know if that's the same entity or not. But it also says in Revelation that hell and death, what is it? Death, hell, or destruction, or something, are thrown into the lake of fire, and that might be one of these, because those words, while they sound like place names to us, they can be read as actual personal names, like of spiritual entities. I have a video on that on this channel if you want more information about that. So I don't know if that's a direct one-to-one connection or not, but it's something to keep our eye on. So it should be cast into the fire. Verse 7, and all that, and that all the children of men may not perish through all the secret things that the watchers have disclosed and have taught their sons. And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. And to Gabriel said the Lord, proceed against the bastards and to the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers from among men, and cause them to go forth. Send them one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. For the length of days shall they not have. And no request that they, i.e. their fathers, make of thee shall be granted unto their fathers on their behalf, for they hope to live an eternal life, and that each one of them will live 500 years. And the Lord said to Michael, go bind Semyaza and his associates, who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth till the day of their judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. There have been people that have tried to do the math on the 70 generations, and it's difficult to do because you don't really know where the starting point is and what's a generation. And but there have been some people that have made various claims about that. I don't discount them all, but I'd have to know more about it. I know Sharon Gilbert's talked about that. I think she tried to do the math at one point and found that it was somewhere around like the 1900s or something when technology started to explode, that the 70 generations, I don't know. I'd have to ask her about that, or maybe have her on the show sometime if she did that. But interesting to think about. I don't fully discount it, but I don't know how that math can be done. I don't know where's the starting point. So, I don't know. So bind them for 70 generations till the day of their judgment, and their consummation till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. And in those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire. There's your lake of fire, and to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined forever. And whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed will from thenceforth be bound together with them to the end of all generations, and destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end, and let the plant of righteousness and truth appear. And it shall prove a blessing to the works of righteous and truth shall be planted in truth for joy forevermore. And then shall all the righteous escape, and shall live till they beget thousands of children, and all the days of their youth and their old age shall they complete in peace. And then shall the whole earth be tilled in righteousness, and shall all be planted with trees and be full of blessings. And all desirable trees shall be planted on it, and shall plant vines on it, and the vine which they plant thereon shall yield wine in abundance. And as for all the seed which is sown thereon, which measure of it shall bear 1,000, and each measures of olive shall yield 10 presses of oil. Now it's interesting that seems like it's talking about a restoration of Edenic conditions. It comes after the lake of fire stuff. So this is like the restoration of Eden on earth. But again, we can't really take this as pure scripture, but this was at least in the mind of the person who wrote it, who would have been more familiar with the culture and the beliefs of the time. So one question that gets asked a lot is, are people still going to have children and things? And at least according to this author, it seems like he was under the assumption that they will, because it says, they shall live till they beget thousands of children. So, at least one person back then thought that. I don't know how far you can take that. Whether that means, I don't know, because back then I don't know what their idea of even a glorified body was compared to what ours is after the writings of Paul and things like that. So, continuing on in verse 20, and cleanse thou the earth from all oppression and from all unrighteousness and from all sin and from all godlessness and all the uncleanness that was wrought upon the earth, destroy from off the earth. And all the children of men shall become righteous, and all nations shall offer adoration and shall praise me, and all shall worship me. And the earth shall be cleansed from all defilement and from all sin and from all punishment and from all torment. And I will never again send them upon it from generation to generation and forever. Now, this is also could also be talking about the flood, and of course, because that's what we saw at the beginning of chapter 10. So, is it about the flood, or is it about the new Edenic restoration that is to occur after the judgment and lake of fire, or is it a little bit of both? Is it one of those situations of a prophecy that's already been fulfilled but not yet? It's interesting to think about that, and I'd be interested to know your views. Leave me a comment. Let's just do chapter 11, and then we'll conclude here. Chapter 11, and in those days I will open the store chambers of blessing, which are in the heavens, so as to send them down upon the earth over the work and labor of the children of men. And truth and peace shall be associated together throughout all the days of the world and through all the generations of men. See, and while somebody could say that that's the flood, there's parts of it, though, because we know that after the flood, you have sin and corruption come back. So it's not from generation to generation forever. So it'd be tough to make that case, but parts of it could be that, parts of it could be the Edenic stuff. Okay, so that's chapters 9 through 11. I think that's a good place to stop, and make sure that you continue on with the series. We're going to continue on until we get through. Well, we'll probably just keep doing it. I mean, it's fun. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from you guys saying that you enjoy it, and of course, I enjoy doing it too. So leave me a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts on this section, what you think about it, and your theories and your ideas. Especially if you're on DTube, I really want to hear your comments. If you're not following me on DTube, make sure you do. You can find it at steemit.com/Josh Peck, easiest place to go. You just click on any of my videos. I upload everything to DTube, and you can subscribe to me on DTube through there. It's a good contender against YouTube, and we need that right now. So let's pray that it keeps growing. So that was a lot of fun. We're gonna say good night, and I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I love you all. Until next time, take care and God bless. You can help fight against censorship by making a one-time donation or setting up a monthly donation to Josh Peck Disclosure at joshpeckdisclosure.com/donate. Or for as little as $1 a month, you can become a Peck patron by heading over to patreon.com/joshpeck. As a Peck patron, you will be entered into contests to have your content featured on the Josh Peck Disclosure homepage, contribute chapters to a collaborative book with Josh Peck, and win a special Josh Peck collection full of materials worth hundreds of dollars. Also, for as little as $3 a month, you will have access to free downloads of Josh Peck books, such as Quantum Creation, Cherubim Chariots, and more. Josh Peck Disclosure is viewer funded. Head on over to joshpeckdisclosure.com for more information. Right now, head on over to joshpeckdisclosure.com, the central hub for everything Josh Peck Disclosure. Every day you'll get brand new videos, podcast updates, and more. Make sure you subscribe at youtube.com/joshpeckdisclosure. Also, make sure you click the bell and select the option to always be notified when a new video is released. Follow Josh Peck Disclosure on Twitter at JPDisclosure and get involved with the show on our official Facebook page at facebook.com/JoshPeckDisclosure. If you're on Steemit and prefer DTube, follow Josh Peck at steemit.com/@JoshPeck and make sure to upvote all Josh Peck Disclosure DTube videos. Keep checking back at joshpeckdisclosure.com for news, information, updates, and more.